Anyone newly here? Okay. So we'll offer a Mandala Offering. Page 15. Most gorgeous in the room. It's offering it up. Refuge and bodhicitta. Charan Soke Charan Chanchu Padu Dagni Kapsuchi Jagi Chenin Gipe Suramti Chola Pancha Sanye Drupashu Sanye Charan Soke Charan Chanchu Padu Dagni Kapsuchi Naye Chunyen Gibe Suramti Yola Peche Sange Drupa Sho Sange Churan Sage Chunama Janchu Padu Jatni Ketsuchi Naye Chunyen Gibe Suramti Yola Peche Sange Drupa Sho. So having said that last bodhicitta, motivation on basis of refuge and so forth, paying our respects to Buddha. Then we continue on, sort of more elaborately setting our motivation for this morning. We can think, of all the aspirational prayers we've made for this year already, for the new year, sort of like refreshing our minds and refreshing our determination and so forth to practice time. So first of all, just bringing your awareness into the space of the body, and your body settled in a sort of conducive posture, well balanced, grounded to the earth below. And let your mind set into the space of the body. Restoring balance of body and mind through this quality of relaxation, which is a spacious mind, sort of unwinding of any physical, mental imbalances. Settling into this. And on top of that, cultivating an attentiveness of mind, not being distracted to things going on around you. And he's distributing papers. I will be there at the end, so you don't need to just pay attention to that just yet. Just let them be there. enabling our attention to rest simply on the breath in your body. You don't need to be distracted by things. It will happen. Just now. Just for a couple of minutes. Settle the mind. Gathering all your energy inside the space of your body, focusing on the breath. Just listen. And enhancing any quality of attention on the breath. The natural radiance of it. As Shakyamuni Buddha said, just as in the last month of the hot season, when a mass of dust and dirt has swirled up, a great rain of cloud out of season disperses and quells it on the spot. So concentration on mindfulness of breath, when developed and cultivated, is peaceful and sublime, an ambrosial dwelling. It disperses and quells on the spot of wholesome states whenever they arise. Drench your mind. Ambrosial dwelling is indwelling. Motivation, aspiration to engage in this investigation of the mind and its potential. And then adjust to the light and sight around you, a little bit more settled into this space and connectedness to why we're here. So Happy New Year, everybody. Let's hope Happy New Year. That's our intention, isn't it? We set those goals for ourselves. Hopefully we haven't broken them yet. Our resolutions. I just want to make a couple of announcements at the beginning because I'm hopeless to make them later. I sort of forget. So for this module, we have this week and next week. And then the following weekend on the Saturday, we have the meditation retreat day, combined with practice, practice meditation day on the Saturday, the 22nd. So that for those wishing to complete all the different components that meets that part of the meditations for this module. And so I also, if that's an obstacle for you, however you do want to complete them, you just let me know. And do encourage people, if you can, come. Whole day if you can, part of the day if you can. And then the following day, the Sunday, we'll have, because it's just like a one-off before I'm out of town for a couple more weeks. So then we'll have a general overview of this whole Discovering Buddhism course and how it's going to work. We've had a programming meeting, we're all on the same page, and I did introduce this when it first came last year, but it was all a bit new and so forth. So we'll have that as a more broad, because I think by then people who are on holidays and so forth are back out of their holidays, there may be new people coming along there. So anyway, just telling you what's happening over the next few weeks. Okay. So today we're looking at, out of all this topic about the mind and its potential, we've got to the point, like I wanted to end on a high note at the end of last year and actually have us on, sort of the positive, virtuous states of mind so that you can go away depressed. I don't want to get depressed today, but we're going to be looking at the mental afflictions, the disturbing things, because this is the stuff of our meditation practice, of our Dharma practice that we want to, sort of be rid of. Might be why we're even turned up to a Dharma center in the first place, something like that. Right? So we'll be just slightly unpacking this topic this morning. So that's where this handout now comes along. So we didn't need it to now. So we talk about these three root, sometimes it's sort of like the three poisons, in the wheel of life. Those who've seen that image of the wheel of life, everyone will see it soon when it's painted on the wall. In the middle of that, which it says that propels all our suffering existence wherever we are in whatever body we arrive in, like this one, is based on these three root, deluded, afflicted, wrong states of mind that get it wrong, not in sync with reality. And so we are living in this day and age, or in this body, in this life, in what's called a desire realm body. That's clear. So we'll get on to that. So that is sort of what propels us having a body, that attachment. So that's one of those root ones, is that attachment, desire, energy. Right. We'll unpack these more further, and that is poison for the mind. Because, we'll talk about it more. I want to talk about it all at the same time. And then the other, another one is the mind of anger, aversion, hatred, revenge, all of that toxic negativity, right? So in this wheel of life, the one of attachment, of desire, is represented by a bird. Some say it's a pheasant, and some say it's a, I don't know, hen or whatever. Peck, 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 peck. I want this, right? And then the one of aversion or hatred or anger is represented as a snake, living on its, hissing snake. Sort of sums it up, doesn't it, anger? And then these two are based on the root one, which is we're totally confused, bewildered, we're totally wrong about how reality and so forth, and we get it all wrong, and that causes all the other problems. So that's the root one. So as we go through, we've got these three, and then we're going to look at, the other 20 on top of those that are combinations of each of those. You go, oh, what hope is there? Well, Buddha said the hope is that you cut this root one and you cut them all. I mean, that's our intention in the end, right? Chipping away. So that one, root one, confusion, a confused state of mind. Ignorance is the word that we use, but it's not ignorance. I just don't know Tibetan, but I'm trying to learn it. And not at the moment, but I'm planning to try and learn again. I was too lazy last time. And the time before. Okay, so this one, the root ignorance, is a fundamental ignorance of how we and everything in the world, all phenomena exist. So that's that root one. This is a huge topic, and it's a much later module, but we're just going to lightly touch on these three. So these three play in together, and that's represented as a pig or a swine in the three. And it's like each one has got its tail in the mouth of the other. It's sort of like they're chasing your tail. We're chasing our tail of all our three poisons, going round and round in crazy circles and ending up in crazy levels of suffering that cause all that suffering. And then each of those has its sort of subset. So this is what we're looking at here. Okay. So these three root runs. So all of this is about, or the whole point of investigating the mind is to develop our correct thinking, our wise reflection of knowing what is a source of correct knowledge, what states of mind to bring, like when we said our motivation, and what are incorrect ways of thinking, the negative states of mind that get in the way of that and lead to harmful actions and so forth. So We have to be able to distinguish things. So we do talk about, well, the Buddha said, all of these states of mind can be uprooted. You use the idea of the fruit analogy or trees, you can uproot. And you've got to know you've got to get all the roots, all the little bits out to not come back again. But not to come back again. So Buddha said that's possible because of everything's mind is momentarily arising, constantly changing. So if we can get control of the mind, we can get control of all of these, at least chip away at them and so forth. So it's all possible. And so, but to do that, we have to identify what it is I want to be rid of. To actually identify how it is and how it functions in my life. We get very clear about that, okay? Not to really immerse ourselves and get stuck in it. That's where we are right now, but actually to get unstuck. So, so the attachment in this presentation, the attachment, attraction, desire, energy comes first because it's the basis that propels us into these suffering existences. So that's the one that overestimates or exaggerates the positive qualities of an object. You know, I was thinking this morning when I was reflecting on this, many years ago, there was a book called Is It Love or Is It Attachment? Right? And this was about relationships and being able to distinguish, is it on the basis of love or a basis of attachment? Well, probably if I was honest with myself, it was absolutely on the basis of both, but it was sort of tipping over to attachment rather than to the love. Because it was attachment to getting what I want, right? You know, if you give me what I want, I'm happy. And if you don't, it becomes something else, right? So this is this attachment. This is how we check up. Oh, that's the mind of attachment. It's very different. The mind of true love is a mind, we're talking in the Buddhist context, that says, may you be happy. May you have happiness and the causes of happiness. Regardless if I'm the cause of that or I'm the opposite, you know. If your happiness is elsewhere, may you be well, may you be happy, you know. That is love. No strings attached. No strings attached. But even more, you know, it's, you know, relationships is a good example. But what is interesting is the things like, I love chocolate. I'm just using it as an analogy because I indeed do not love chocolate, personally. I love chocolate. And I, you know, lived for many years at Vajrayana Institute with and this monk would say to other people who said, oh, because, you know, you turn up a Dharma center, there's chocolates everywhere, right? And I'm so glad I don't love chocolate because it's much bigger. But he'd say, you cannot love chocolate. You can desire it. You can like it a lot. You can be very attached to chocolate and you can totally elaborate on top of its just the ingredients that are there, all these qualities that don't exist on the side of chocolate. So this is our mind of attachment, of desire, wanting to have, you know. So that, you know, we want to have something, you know, to own it. It's my chocolate now, and I'm not going to share it, you know. So many years ago, as I observed this friend of mine, her daughter, maybe about 4 years old, and the mother would be always saying, you know, share your toys. It's mine. She was an only child, so it made it, any only child children here. Anyway, I don't know if that made it worse, but this sense of possession, it comes with us at a very young age. Mine, as soon as you identify mine, and then, you know, grasping. So this is a very dangerous state of mind, right? And so it's quite fascinating to watch, you know, children get that sense of possessiveness. But we can watch our own mind in that sense of possessing of what is mine, which could be material things, it can be people, it can be my people, my country, my this, my that. It's pervasive, right? And then if we don't get what we want, then it turns to the next one, the aversion, the anger. So we can't always maintain what we, you know, even we get it, the object, it doesn't last. Oh, the chocolate ran out, you know, there's a book I love when the chocolate runs out. What to do? What to do? No more chocolate. Can't believe that in this place. I don't think there's ever going to be no more chocolate. But you might be sick of chocolate after Christmas too, I don't know, or whatever. Anyway, so we want to, but we can't keep it forever. And intellectually we know that. I mean, look at relationships. Relationships end, you know. Either we break up. And this is where I was thinking about the love and attachment. So I'll give you a couple of examples that will, maybe this, okay, one example of attachment. You know, when I was in, I was at our center section in San Francisco some years ago. I was there for a few months. And my teacher said, went away to lead a pilgrimage and said, read, it's very good to read the New York Times. It has the Lam Rim graduate path to enlightenment. What you need by reading the New York Times, I'm going to learn that. Well, there were some great stories, and if you look at it from a Dharma perspective when you're reading those stories. So this one, the couple who they were in a big house, and okay, they did the happy family thing, had family, but they were a happy couple, and then they were a very unhappy couple, and then they wanted to separate, but they neither wanted to leave the house. They're both attached to the house. So they put a dividing wall in the house, right? One got one half, one got the other half. And the man got the front door. And the woman, to get into her half of the house, which he was indeed as attached to as he was to his side, had to go through a window to get into her half of the house. And I thought, that's this one, isn't it? Not attachment to the other person. No, I want a dividing wall with you. But I mean, it's fascinating. You read those stories. The man in, the one in London, this was gross. So, I mean, how does this happen? We hear those stories. They fell in love. They married, and then they fell out of love. But they were still in the house together. He killed her. Yeah, okay, that happens. But he killed her. This gets gross, right? Chopped her up and fried her up in a frying pan and ate her. Like, that is beyond bizarre. That is a very toxic state of mind. I don't know if that went from reversion, or maybe he was still attached and wanted to have bits of a body. I don't know how that works, but it's interesting. So these stories can just show us how dangerous our minds can get. And you say, phew, I'm not that bad. I think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon, so that's relief. But, you know, this mind of attachment. The Buddha, the first teachings of all truths, this constant craving, this constant dissatisfaction. That's what the first truth of the first teaching of the Buddha, saying, you know, we have this mind of dukkha, of dissatisfaction, discontent, no matter what conditions we end up with externally, we're discontent with it. And so we keep looking for more and big and better and different experiences. And what is it? There's nothing new to experience in sense. We have done it all. No matter how many new tastes of chocolate or tea or anything else, we've had every taste. We've done everything. But we keep looking, isn't it? We keep looking. So this is this dissatisfied mind. So that mind is never settled. It's never satiated. Never. It just wants more to go. I mean, taken to its extreme, you see where that takes us in addiction. But even not going that far, even our, you know, little desires that come up on the basis of the senses, you know, I'm sitting here to meditate and I go to sound. When I lived at Vajrayana Institute, and you'd be sitting there meditating, and the residence kitchen was just outside, like corridor. It wasn't outside, but on the other side of the corridor. The building went across. And if someone's cooking lunch and you're sitting there meditating, guess what's happening? And on this side was the Greek family out the back in summer, was just so glad I didn't know Greek, because then the ear would go out that side to hear what their conversation, which you couldn't understand anyway. You know, our senses do this all the time, don't they? So this gets us into a whole bunch of trouble when we're wanting to pay attention and so forth. Okay, and when it doesn't get what it wants, then that it turns to the next one. Snake. The hissing snake, not happy chappy. So the aversion mind, the anger mind, the hatred mind, the revenge mind, it all bundled up here. So now you've gone from you can't stand like that person, or nobody has said to me they hate chocolate. I mean, even I don't eat it. There's a medical reason. You know, it's not because one day I sort of said I'll be virtuous and give up chocolate and renounce chocolate. You know, it didn't happen, right? So, okay, so there are reasons. But the mind of aversion is this one that over-exaggerates the negative qualities. So, you know, someone you dislike, maybe you did like them, and then they did one thing, said one thing, and all of a sudden your mind blows that up bigger than Bento. All of a sudden I don't like the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you dress. I like those things before. But you said that one thing that upset me. See, me. And so all of a sudden I don't like anything about you whatsoever. And so, and then I continue to do that. And even you walk into the room, my mind of aversion arises. You haven't done anything, right? So I put my object out there. I've separated myself from you now. I didn't need a dividing wall in the house. No metaphoric dividing wall. Right. I've separated myself from you. Nothing to do with you. I turn the other way. I'll walk across the street if I see you in the street quick enough, or pretend I didn't see you, and so forth. Don't answer your emails, whatever. You know. So we do this because you didn't give me what I want, or I got what I didn't want. I ordered chocolate cake and you brought me carrot cake. Or I ordered a whatever double shot this or whatever and you brought me something else, decaf. You know what I mean? Our mind very quickly, engages in such mental anguish. And it's a cause of things like physical illness. So we do this to ourselves. I mean, the Buddha said, if you're going to get angry, it's suggested not to get angry. I'm not saying the Buddha suggested to get angry, but if we're going to use logic, we get angry at a person or our object of anger, right? Is out there. You hurt me, so you're my object of anger. Or we get angry, I might be, okay, one of the analogies that uses, we get angry at the object, we get angry at the sort of instrument of that anger, which might be a weapon. So they use the analogy of a stick. Hit with a stick. So why not get angry with the stick? It was the stick that hurt you. It's not logical. Get angry with a person, it was the stick that hurt you. Or get angry with anger itself, because that's the harm done. The harm done is the anger. So why not turn your anger and frustration onto that anger? It's a high advanced way of going about it, to investigate your own anger. That's a meditation, whole elaborate meditation. So this one. So, the idea is that everybody and everything should be complicit in my happiness and the source of my happiness. Nothing to do with what I do, but from them. And that's totally wrong view. And then we totally exaggerate all the negativity and so forth, which is also completely wrong. Now, that person who I have an aversion for, somebody else, it's their dearly beloved. So if they were truly that toxic being from their own side, nobody will have anything to do with it. That's not true. And I think even Bill Clinton, I think they did say, you know, when he cheated on, you know, with that Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, I think they said at one point even the dog wasn't talking to him. I'm not sure. But I think that, you know, if you fed the dog, I think the dog was talking to him. Anyway, even that situation has been resolved. So, yeah. So I like that. It's possible. So, so both of these are flip sides of the same coin on the basis of this ignorance, you know, this mind of confusion that totally gets everything wrong, doesn't see that everything is interdependent. So because I see as everything out there, the cause of all my suffering is out here, and the cause of my happiness, I'm always going to get it wrong, no matter what, because I think it's out there. Whereas the Buddha said, actually it's not, it's in here. And so this one, you know, is that mind that we don't see the impermanent nature of things, which was also in that first teaching of the Buddha, the first truth. The first aspect of that is impermanent, that everything is subject to change. Nobody, no thing can be an enduring, lasting sense of your happiness, because everything doesn't last. Everything changes. Everything, you know, where there is a meeting, there is a party. Even long-term relationships. Even like my parents married for 63 years, and I can't say every moment of those 63 years was a happy moment, but most of them were, so they stayed together, you know. Okay, but still the separation, one died before the other, you know. So it happens, right? We know it happens. So we all, you know, experience that sense of letdown, as it says, you know, it's like a small child that doesn't get there, you know, I can get what I want, and then aversion arises, and then we react with anger and rage and so forth. And we keep doing this over and over, and things go bad, from bad to worse, bad to worse. So this mind of confusion or bewilderment, ignorance, same. It's, I like the word confusion because it's like we're totally confused. It's like we've got these dark veils on our mind that obscures everything, and this is an obscuring mind. It makes it impossible to see things clearly, you know, to really just see things just as they are. One of my, a friend of mine, Dharma friend, it's been a long-term Dharma student, was at Vajrayana Institute, and she said, "Oh, can I just check something with you?" She said, because Geshe Sharab, Geshe Sharab been here? Geshe Sharab was teaching at the centre, and she said, have a look at this photo. Geshe Sharab asked me that he wanted a copy of this photo. And she showed me the photo, and it was a photo at Kopan Monastery in maybe the 70s or early 80s. So she'd been there. So it was a photo. And she's right there in front of the monastery, in front of the building. And she said, you know, Geshe wants a photo of me, this photo of me. And I said, well, why don't you check with Geshe why he wants the photo? Because I didn't know why he wanted the photo. Why does he want the photo? She was a bit concerned. Geshe wants a photo of me. Why does Geshe want a photo of me? We make up elaborate stories, right? She made up some elaborate story. She asked Geshe. He said, well, I wanted a photo of that building that you're standing in front of, because that building wasn't there anymore. See what our minds do? Build the drama in a nanosecond. We're very good at it. Okay, so the Buddha said, this is the advice of the Buddha dealing with all of this. Let a man, let's just assume man, woman, or whatever title you wish to have, guard him, her, whatever. Let a man guard himself against irritability in bodily action. That's the mind of aversion, irritability. Let him be controlled in deed. Abandoning bodily misconduct, let him practice good conduct in deed, our actions. Let a man guard himself against Irritability in speech. I think this is the big one we all need. Guard against irritability. It comes out so quickly, doesn't it? Let him be controlled in speech, abandoning verbal misconduct. Let him practice good conduct in speech. And so here again, we have to know, well, what's the one to abandon? What's the one to practice? Let a man guard himself against irritability in thought. It's getting, the challenges are, it's upping the ante because thought's the hardest one. That's the real work to be done. Let him be controlled in mind, abandoning mental misconduct, let him practice good conduct in thought. So this is what we need to do, but first of all, we need to know what each of those bits are. And you sort of go, well, isn't that self-evident? Apparently not. Just look at the world, right? Just look at the world. Just look at ourselves. Just look at our minds. So it's a summary, effectively, of, you know, in relation to all the different afflictions and what we need to abandon and what we need to develop in terms of the virtuous states of mind. Okay, so under these three root delusions, there's this summary of 20 secondary afflictions. In other words, each one of those has its subsets. Of course, we could unpack those and unpack those and unpack those, but I think this is enough to go on with, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. So these are the things that propel all the problems or the difficulties in our life altogether, in our relationships, in every moment of our day, every scene. And also, particularly, of course, we're very interested in relation to our spiritual practice. Even when I want to do something virtuous, the non-virtuous state arises, or my virtuous state is weak, or I can't sustain it. All these things that come along. We can relax and say, welcome to the club. We're all works in progress, right? And those of you who've been around longer can see the benefits of the virtues that you had developed and see, yeah, I can see what the Buddha said is true, and I can see that I ain't there yet, a lot of work to do. We're all works in progress. So we can relax. This is not, you know, beat yourself up, right? It's to understand ourselves. So from this mind of attraction, desire, energy, craving, grasping, when we talk about that in the 8 links on the wheel of life, the 8 links of dependent arising, the craving and grasping, holding on to the body that propels us into existence. At least we've got propelled into a virtuous existence here. So there also had to be virtue in our mind, and we want to develop more of that. I want to know how I did that previously. Apparently I worked hard for that, but yeah. Okay. So this mind, yeah, we talked about those 3 minds. So avarice or greed is very prevalent in the world, isn't it? Very much prevalent in the world. People making decisions or using their wealth to acquire more wealth. So they say the cause of wealth, karmically, past lives we can't see, is having been generous. So I think about the people who are very wealthy, having come into this life with an abundance of virtue of generosity. But it's what you do with it then, isn't it? It's what you do with it next. And so this mind of greed, which is based on this ignorance of holding on to this self of me and mine, my stuff, my wealth, and clinging to that and not wanting to be separated, and frankly wanting more and more. And I don't care who I've got to walk over in the process. So it's a terribly disturbing state of mind, terribly toxic state of mind. Not sharing, that mind, that little kid who doesn't want to share their toys, that's this mind developed into a mind of greed. And we have the, from that desire energy, also this sense of self-satisfaction. Well, I'm okay. Not I'm okay, are you okay? Not that one. Just I'm okay. Look after number one. It's totally self-absorbed, a sense of, and even a sense of superiority. Oh, I'm better than, just putting your label. Western Australia is better than the rest of Australia because we don't have COVID yet. Just wait till everything. Or sometime sooner. I mean, it's all going to come flooding out. Just, we're going to get off our high horse very soon, aren't we? Or maybe you're already freaking out about that. So this false, it is a false sense of superiority because it's all false, because it all doesn't last. So it's a sort of arrogance of pride, which comes from, I am okay, and you're pleased with your own good fortune. Well, things are going really well for me. And that can lead to indifference to those whose things aren't going really well. At the least harm will be indifference towards others. But then, if it's got that sense of superiority, that can lead to things like sexism, racism, every ism that comes along. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama reminds us, as human beings, fellow human beings, physically, mentally, emotionally, we're all the same. Those differences are temporal, colour. I mean, we've just been, it was announced Sidney Poitier had died, 94, lived a long life. And it sort of reminds you of all the sort of past racism and so forth, and think how far have we come, Black Lives, all of that sort of thing, just as a world system, narcissism, all the isms. Narcissism, big one, from self-satisfaction, and that's rising and rising in the world. Dangerous mind. They're all dangerous minds. I'm going to say it's dangerous mind, that's going to be every single one of them. As we go along, just think which one are, because I'm going to ask you to spend a bit of time discussing, which one or pick one that you think, yeah, that one's particularly challenging for me. That's the one that trips me up every time. And that's the one I really am, working on, trying to work on, or want to work on, or whatever. Keeps me awake at night. That's the thing. Okay, just think about that. Because there's some that we have in bucket loads, and some we go, I don't really have that one. I don't think it's not. Doesn't bother me. That's true. You're probably right. Until we get more subtle levels of the mind, but at this sort of really manifest level of mind, the mind of excitement, those of us who are wanting, cultivating meditation practice, which is all of us, right? This is one of the key ones that comes along, that you sit there to meditate and this excitation of the mind arises, and you want to be still, but it's just like, well, I would say I was in Sydney Central Station in there. Where would we say here? Central Station, does that work, or somewhere? Is there anywhere busy enough in WA? I don't think there is. New York, let's say New York. So, this mind of distraction, you want to focus on a virtuous object. You want to sort of pay attention, but your mind's going all over the shop. And this is because of attachment, because of the senses. In the 12 links, you see where, the monkeys grabbing the fruit from the trees, going from fruit to fruit to fruit. Oh, there's a nice one, there's a nice one. That's what our mind's doing all the time. It's this. Well, it's not every second, hopefully, an adrenaline rush, because I think then you'd crash. Not literally out there on the road, please. But it is a particularly strong obstacle to our gaining single-pointed attention, concentration. And it's at different levels. So we have this sort of gross level, and then we've got chip away at that, and then there's medium, and it's one of the very first obstacles in our meditation practice that we have to address. It's the most manifest one when we first sit to, usually when we first sit to meditate, is the main one. And people get shocked about that. I mean, maybe yourself, you know, you first sat down to meditate and thought, I can't. It's too busy. Welcome. Everybody's the same. We haven't trained our mind yet to be able to do that. Keeping in mind, we can. Okay. So, yeah, so that's from the desire energy, the attachment energy, and from aversion energy, the anger energy, hatred, all that negative state. Now, I say wrath and you say wrath, or I say wrath and you say wrath, or something like that. We can say we were brought up. What do you say? Wrath? Wrath! Wrath! Okay, that one. Which is, we could also say rage. We don't debate the pronunciation of that one. Yeah, I was talking, can't remember if it was Venerable Thubten or someone else I was talking to, about, I used to be in a choir before I ordained, obviously, because I renounced singing, dancing, all of that. And I was prepared to do that, otherwise I wouldn't be ordained, I'd be still singing and dancing. I'm singing and dancing, see? I can't know if I've let go of the attachment to it, but I've let go of doing it, so that's good. But anyway, so at one point, people who were couples in the choir at a concert, it was a community choir, right? And so the musical director said, okay, you people who are couples, I want you all to do like a duet together. Of course, you know, some of them just like to hide in the back row, were totally freaked out, but everyone had a go. And this one couple, and it epitomised their whole relationship from what we could see from the outside. They sang, I say tomato, you say tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. Well, they did subsequently call the whole thing off. I just wonder, why are you guys still together? Because you just argue with each other all the time about the silliest little things, you know. Anyway, they did break up. And then sometime later, they got back together again. They're still going. I don't know, some people in their relationships, that's their dynamic that keeps them going. If it doesn't disturb them, that's fine. But when it's a disturbance and turns to wrath, anger, rage, it's a thoroughly malicious state of mind, totally toxic. The wish to cause harm by increasing and increasing anger. So years ago when I was working on this project in schools, cooling conflicts, it was anti-racism, then it became anti-bullying and so forth. So the group was getting kids, and it was all peer education. So we started with year 11, and they trained year 9, and they trained year 7, you know, and the 10s did the 8s, you know, so forth, all the way down to grade 3. To notice when before it gets to this stage that you want to do harm, where that slight irritation in the mind arises, that you can do something about. Now that, we weren't getting them to sit and meditate. They were doing fun activities. They were doing, it was a drama-based thing. They could do it. The little kids could do it. They could identify it in their minds. Very good program. But it's still gone. It's good for us, you know, to learn like that. In the cultivating emotional balance training, which maybe some people have done here with Kirsty or Corey, some years since it's been done. So we were trained, also Paul Ekman's idea, how early can we shine the light of awareness onto that dissatisfied mind to nip it in the bud. There is a way through this. So, you know, there is a way. We've got to keep reminding ourselves, there's a way through this. Yes, I do have all of these, but there is a way through. Vengeance is the mind of revenge. It totally, I always think of the movie 9 to 5. Anybody remember the movie 9 to 5? I can't remember the actors. Who are they? They're women. Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton, and you know, they were seeking revenge on their exes, something like that, right? Or something like that. That was anyway. I can't remember the movie, but it was like that mind of revenge. That not only are you angry, but you cultivate that over and over. It's really we say resentment. Re-feeling is literally what that means. We feel it over and over. We hold on to the grudge. We make it big and juicy. And we start to plan and plot how we're going to get back at it, right? And it can be exciting to the mind to do that. Whole movies are made about that, aren't they? And people actually go and watch it. I don't need to watch it. I've got enough of my own, thanks. I don't think I plot revenge on people, actually. Maybe I don't know. But anyway, we can check up for ourselves. So it's that plotting mind, right? You might hold on to, 20 years ago, it happens in relationships, doesn't it? When you said, did, whatever. It's just like, what? You're still holding on to that 20 years later. It's been festering away in your mind. Yes. It is the attitudes, yes, and the what behind? The actual behaviour, yes, it is the attitudes, our belief systems, and that's where the Buddha said, because we get it wrong about reality, all these others manifest and come along. Because the root ignorance already is wrong views, wrong ideas, wrong conceptions about reality. So those particular views, it's sort of said, are wrong. And that is the source of all our problems. All our problems. So we have in the Guru Puja, it says the 404 affliction-caused diseases. The Buddha said 84,000. So of course, you've got to go to the doctor and get the medicine. It's not like you're going to say, no, it's okay, I'll just sit here and meditate and heal myself. Because we don't have that capacity, right? And we do have medicine, it's very good. Take the medicine. But yes, there are, out of anger, it's like a cancer. It can cause, I don't know that it's not the physical cause of cancer, right? But you think about, I appreciate those of us in Western Australia may be difficult to comprehend, but the people who were locked up for so long during COVID, during the lockdown periods in COVID around the world, who were okay physically, they didn't get sick, right? But mentally, look what's happening. So you'd have to say, conclusion is, you've done that to yourself. And when that mental affliction arises, then it does affect your immune system. So it's so interconnected. The mind is not the body, but very interdependent. So absolutely it affects it. Totally affects it. And there is a transformative nature. It's true. If you think the body is made up of all these elements, and one of the things that you're doing in meditation, same elements that are outside, inside the body, meditation, and you're bringing your body and mind, you're focusing on the mind to a state of balance. That includes the elements, particularly the wind element, which is the air. And so when there's a disturbance to the wind element, in Tibetan medicine, they say that's the cause of mental disturbances, is the wind energies not being aligned in the body. So there's it's in a lot of holistic medicine, right? There's, in all those Ayurvedic, Tibetan medicine, probably Chinese medicine as well. Dealing with subtle energies in the body. Yes, definitely. Definitely. But people hear it wrong and they think, go off the medication. I think it was at either Nalanda Monastery or Institute Vajrayogini. I don't know, it was one of those, because it must have been Institute Vajrayogini. There was a mental health facility nearby. And as people were transitioning out of the mental health facility, they'd send them to the Dharma Centre to learn to meditate. And there was this one woman who, the story's told, that she went there to learn to meditate. And some very unwise student said, oh, well, if you're meditating, you don't need medication. Don't, they sort of confuse the two words. And, go off your medicine. There are people who have those views, which are wrong views, right? They're totally ridiculously wrong views. Anyway, and so she listen to this person. Be careful, use your wisdom mind. And it said, one time she had serious mental health issues. And so she was standing in front of I guess she was giving a teaching, stark naked, dancing. If she was in her right mind, she would have been so embarrassed, but she wasn't in her right mind, and so it was all out there. That's another afflictive state of mind. That comes. Okay, so be careful with all of this. Spite, which following on from wrath, revenge, rage, the intention to use harsh speech against someone. Or do they stick the knife in with the voice, lashing tongue? Right, so be very careful what comes out of our mouth. Not just the mouth, emails, social media, any form of communication. Put a zip at the lip on that. Envy, jealousy. This is on the basis of, we say, the 8 worldly concerns, but particularly attachment to having a reputation or high status or so forth, and possessions, attachment to your possessions, or wanting something that someone else has got. I grew up in the Catholic tradition. When I grew up in the Catholic tradition, don't covet thy neighbour's wife and don't covet thy neighbour's goods. That's this one, coveting mind. And the jealous mind says, it's not fair. I'm jealous of you because you've got the XYZ. If you've been on the recipient of that, you know how deflating it is. Oh, I'm jealous of you. It's just sort of, you joyfully heard some news or received an inheritance or whatever, and someone says, oh, I'm jealous of you, and it just sort of deflates it, doesn't it? It's awful. So in the Dharma Center, I hear this one a lot. Someone's going on retreat. Oh, I'm jealous of you. See, it's a different words, but it's the same energy. So be careful, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Because you could then create the cause for yourself to do whatever it is, or have whatever it is as well. That's the antidote, rejoice. Each one has an antidote, so you can think that as we go along. Cruelty. This is awful, isn't it? The wish to denigrate and slight others arising from malice. So this is dangerous, cause harm, physical harm to others. Cruel, like the bullies in the schoolyard. So the cruel, like when I was growing up, the family next door, the woman, I don't know, the mother had some very bad behaviours. We lived across the road from a boys' school, and so when the boys were coming out of school, she'd be out there in her bikini mowing the lawn. And then her kids, like one day one of her kids broke into our place and my mother caught him. And my mother said, oh, he got into trouble, but I think he got into trouble because he was caught, not because he did what broke in. Because it was tragic. I mean, I just wonder what's happened to those poor kids, They were putting crackers on cats' bottoms. Oh my God, the mind, like this, cruelty of mind is, yeah. But even we say, I don't have that extreme, but do I denigrate others? Do I slight others? Do I have that maliciousness in my mind? Be careful, it can be very slippery soil. So, from confusion, ignorance, concealment, hiding, and this is in a spiritual practice context we're talking about right here, hiding your negative qualities from someone who's trying to help you. It might not be, it might be in a worldly context, someone's trying to point out your faults. So it might be in a relationship, but the heaviest one is, when, the Lama comes to town and everyone's on their good behaviour and looking their very best and pretending I'm the best student, right? And even more heavy would be to say, oh, I have these qualities, you know, and so forth. And you could not no, that's boasting about good qualities. This concealing that you've got the negative ones in the first place. And you think those lamas can't see through that? Dream on, dream on. So there's no point in that. But it's also very heavy because this comes out of deceit of wanting to, you know, it's dishonest, isn't it? Yeah, very heavy. And the dullness, this one also we experience in meditation. So the listless mind, the heavy mind, the vague mind, that really, in a way, doesn't take initiative, doesn't take responsibility, is a laziness of the mind, you know. It let others take responsibility and do things and so forth. It doesn't take, you know, it's not the laxity that we talk about in meditation. Yeah, it's a heavy, dark, obscured mind on the basis of this influence. Faithlessness. So this is having encountered the Buddha's teachings. We talked, you know, I think most people here before Christmas, where we were talking about having a mind of faith, you know, and this is the opposite mind. A lack of belief and respect for the Buddha's teachings, for things that are valid, karma, cause and effect, having heard about them, that you dismiss it, oh, you know, and lack of respect for that. And that leads to then you have no motivation to cultivate good qualities because you don't realise that that also has consequences. You think karma is all the negative stuff, don't want that. But we don't realise it's all the good stuff as well, and we do want that, all the virtuous states of mind. So we forget to develop those. Laziness, so many different levels of laziness, you know, that when we strongly hold an object of attachment and losing faith to engage in constructive activities. Yeah, I know I should go to the Dharma Centre, but there's a good movie on. And okay, give yourself a bit of balance in life. I'm not saying never, 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 never. But when that lazy mind takes over, or so I'll give you an example from me because embarrassing my example. Well, all our examples are embarrassing. So you can have my embarrassing ones. So I was at Bulgaria one time and Lama Zopa Rinpoche was teaching, and you know, I was mostly, if Rinpoche was heading to the Bulgaria Stupa, we were staying at Root Institute. I was there, like I would be like, if the car was going out in the morning, I'd be out there offering kata before they zoomed off or whatever. But this one evening, and I was sort of in bed, and I may not have been in bed, but anyway, I was heading towards sleep time, and I heard the car going, and oh, Rinpoche's going to the stupa. Oh, I'm too. I regretted that. You know, to this day, I remember it and I regret it, that laziness of mine. So we've all got it, right? And of course, there's things, antidotes to oppose that, you know, having the mind of faith and confidence and aspiration. Yes, I'm going to do it. Joyous perseverance, all of these things counteract that mind. We need to counteract that mind because it comes along. It might not be go to the Dharma Centre, but it might be, oh, maybe I won't meditate. Whoa, slippery slope, isn't it? And then tomorrow, then the next day, and oh, whoops. Oh, well, I used to meditate. Yeah. Forgetfulness, which is the opposite of mindfulness, right? We forget, so distracting the mind from constructive things. I do want to engage in virtue, but now I haven't meditated for so long, I've completely forgotten that's an option to me, right? And instead, doing negative things, destructive things, or at least not beneficial things. We also talk about forgetfulness of the object in meditation and the application of mindfulness. So like in the foundation of all good qualities, Lama Tsongkhapa says, mindfulness, alertness, great caution arise. So we have these qualities of mind we've got to apply. Be careful, great caution, take care, be aware. And then the mind of inattention, that, of course, we have that in terms of distraction, but that's not this one here. It's sort of like anything goes. You like a sort of sense of conscientiousness to guard your actions, your words, your thoughts. Sort of, oh well, it's a sort of let it all hang out, type thing. And so you're not being careful about your mind. You're not being careful about your actions and your speech. And so then it gets into more and more negative states of mind. Okay. And then from attraction and confusion, so now these, we're getting into the toxic mixes of them all. Pretension and over attachment to respect and property. Puffing yourself up, that pride, that arrogance. You invent admirable qualities about yourself. And by the way, did you know I'm, got a degree in blah, blah, blah? Or did you know I know about everything? I know everything there is to know. We might not be that, but just check where we do it. Dishonesty. So these are cheating minds. These are sneaky minds. They're worst behaviour. So attachment to respect and property, because you want, again, both of these are. And you confuse others by hiding your faults. So this is sort of connects back up to the concealment one. So others get confused because, it's totally deceitful, dishonest mind. And then from all three, shamelessness, lack of consideration. Okay, shamelessness. So we talked about a sense of shame or where you guard yourself. This is positive states, in a positive state of mind. And this one's the opposite, where you're not caring about the Dharma. And so for your own sake, you don't try and inhibit destructive actions, destructive thoughts, regrettable speech, and so forth. Right? And so this leads to then breaking vows, because you haven't got that sense of, we would probably say self-regulation in a way, that you know what's right, but you're not regulating that, you're not checking up. If you've got vows, am I holding those? Or am I creating harm with my speech or with my actions or with my thought? Lack of consideration is the one, disregard for the impact of that on others, that your lack of care for Dharma. And so you don't try and, again, it's similar to not avoiding destructive ways of speech and action and so forth, but not caring of that impact on others. Lack of conscientiousness. Out of laziness, one is out of control and doesn't guard against non-virtue and practice virtue. This again relates to that. This is very similar to the other ones here. So you sort of act in a very unrestrained manner. And that increases your non-virtues and then obstructs you developing any virtues. Because our virtues are weak anyway. So if we give more fuel to our non-virtues, Buddha says we've been doing that since the beginning of time. And so then the mind of distraction, we've all been experiencing that this morning, right? One is unable to maintain attention on a constructive task or object, listening to the Dharma teachings. It's not to beat ourselves up, just notice how quickly it comes along. And the mind becomes scattered and latches on to many different things. In fact, it's like we want to, so our energies scatter outwards. And so then the mind of attention is a sort of in concentration, bringing all that energies inwards. And, sort of that becomes very powerful concentration energy. So that, as I said, there are antidotes to all this. So you can see we're a whole bundle of all these toxic cocktails. So no wonder we're a little bit messed up, right? Okay, so that's them. So there's a little bit of time here that I would like you to maybe just in like 3 or 2 or just what's easy, not too big, not too many people all together because you won't have a chance to talk. And just for a couple of minutes, just go around and say, oh, that's the one I really have a problem with. And just see if anybody can help you out with, no. No. First of all, see what you've done to counteract it and how that's helped. Because I think we've got to apply this to ourselves. I don't want this to be, an advice-giving session for each other. I want it to be for us to identify, oh, I've got a really problem with jealousy. I am so jealous. Oh, what have you done about that? That's your next thing. And what I've done about it is, okay, so let's do 5-10 minutes on that and share a few examples. Okay, pick your buddy, probably means moving. Attached to the chair, so somebody's got to move. Or to the floor. Or to the floor. Our bodies are made for movement, go for it. Go in a new direction, yes. New year, new direction, go for it. So when we come back together, it'll be sharing tips for dealing with the one. We don't need to go on and, we're just going to have some quick tips at the end. So that's what we're aiming towards. Okay, go. I think you 4 down the back, 2 and 2. 2 and 2. It's too big. Too big. Okay, maybe take another 2 minutes, okay? Okay, so let's wind up in your conversation. Bring some tips back to the bigger group. Oh, the magic of the bell. Okay, there's lots, I appreciate there's lots to discuss, but before we wind up this session, I thought it'd be wonderful to share some tips for some helpful strategies with each other. So shall we start here and make our way across? Anybody who would like to just share your tips and just say in relation to which one it is. Come on, we've got to help each other out. Sandy, go. Monkey mind, yes.
And, you know,
Did I take this? Yeah, yeah, distracted. Yes. Yes.
And if I get these little funny,
Right.
put one little
Wonderful. So they're beautiful analogies. Yeah.
I
So,
want them to ping off me.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna repeat that for the recording. So good analogy that of having like the blinkers, like horses have the blinkers. Come on, you've just got a channel, and that's bringing that energy in, that focus in, and then having a like shield or helmet or whatever, so that things come off and don't go into the distractions that are out there, don't come in. So it's a mental image. They're both mental images that help us because it's using the transformative nature of mind. Fantastic. Anybody else? Fantastic. Thank you. Well, let's come on, help each other out. Somebody's. My name, Andrew.
So I had also had the distraction.
Yeah.
To make the object up.
Okay. Did you do the, for distraction, putting the note on the front door? Remember to take the garbage out. Okay. But what, yeah, so, I'm sorry, the selling possessions.
Yeah, or
Right.
on my phone.
So to declutter your phone, declutter your life. Yes. You can't avoid it, it's right there. You're going to trip over it. You have to work hard to be distracted with all the obstacles you put in the way to distraction. Fantastic. Wonderful. The thing about the deleting in the apps, do they stay deleted? Yeah, good. Wonderful. Anyone else? These are useful tips here.
Okay, next, I'm going to go with self-satisfaction. Selfishness.
Welcome to the world.
And actually, I think that
yeah.
Because all of those things.
Yeah, it's when it's a finding a balance,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah. So, just
That's very skillful. Yeah, it's sort of listening skill rather than feeling like we've got to impose or put the words in your mouth. But that it's very skillful, and that is it's integrating the Dharma into everything we do. So it's not like the Dharma and meditation's over here when I go to the center, and then family stuff's here. It's like it's that is. Because why are we doing this? We want to see the differences in our relationships, in our lives, in our sense of physical, mental, emotional well-being, isn't it? So that's, really, really fantastic. Maybe one more? Yes. Yes. So it's a tightness of the mind. Mm. Yes. So that comes out of that sense of status or reputation or so forth, which is worldly concerns. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so then it becomes a pride, arrogance, or superiority, or as you said, you're setting high expectations for other people. Yeah, the mind of perfectionism is insidious, isn't it? And of course, the one's of Rinpoche. So, and what has worked? What has worked?
Well, we have.
Mindfulness. Yeah, be aware when that happens. And when you do that, you relax the mind. You relax the mind. Oh, that's it. Yeah, because that's the mind still going. You've got to keep going. We apply something once and we think it's going to work. No, you have to keep going because that habitual state of mind is tenacious. It'll hold on, right? And so even though you're describing that it gets angry because it happened again, that's just another manifestation of affliction. You say, oh, okay, there's more work to be done, more work to be done. Yes, I should. Quit the shoulds, isn't it? Quit the shoulds, yeah. So as long as Rinpoche says, don't squeeze the mind, but I think we can apply that here quite well. Don't get too tight. And that's what you're describing, that sort of tightness, that we need to be kind to ourselves, actually. Kindness is be gentle to ourselves, kind to ourselves. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. And I'm sure there was much more fruitful, bountiful discussion on the basis of the fact that all of these disturbing states of mind are not in the nature of our mind itself. Remember, we said the mind is clear, luminous, like unobstructed space. That is the nature of mind. And therefore we can be rid of it. Yeah, which is not guarding the mind. There's lots of different forms of laziness, procrastination, distraction is another form of laziness. So it's interesting because it's a different way to how we, in our culture, might talk about laziness. So it's quite specific. There's a lot of laziness manifests in different ways. Yeah, that is, we talk about distraction to wrong objects. It's objects of the senses. You're wanting to engage in virtue, but you're holding on to the sound or the smell, or, sensory input or whatever, and you can't let go of that. So that's described as a form of laziness. Interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You could also say it's a clinging and grasping. So we can, yeah. Okay, thanks everybody. So next week we'll sort of wrap up about, a little bit more about the antidotes and the constructive states of mind, because they're the ones in sync with reality, so they're only ever a sense of mental and physical well-being. And maybe that's a way we can tell the difference. Is this disturbing my mind, or is this giving me more happiness and joy? And then we have to, what is that happiness and joy? Okay. So we'll dedicate all our positive energies from this morning to continue to grow and counteract all these other states of mind. Page 17, I think. Yes, the first two verses there under the mantra. Actually, we'll do the English on the other side, page 16, so we know what we're saying. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious body mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Let me turn over to page 18, opposite. Oh, no, not that one. Next page. A long prayer for Dalai Lama. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling joy, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. In page 222, Long Life Prayer for Captures Lamas of Rinpoche. You who uphold the subduous moral way, who serves as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers, honouring the three jewels, Saviour of myself and of your disciples, please live long. The Long Life Prayer for Tenzin Gyatso. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teaching, so foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, O Lama, please live long. Very much, everyone. I've got it over here.